Hello, I am Lulu Incognito. I'm a professional cosplayer who has worked for various gaming companies like Gearbox and Capcom, and has also written as a cosplayer for lots of publications. But I'm here today to talk about turning from a cosplayer into a performer, and I now have a production company called Dirty Nerdy Burlesque, and I actually tour the company as a performer, producer, host, and MC.
My name is Kieran Dixon, and I am editorial and creative director at MGM Studios. I work mainly on creative output for a little show called Stargate.
I'm Karen Robertson. I am a chemical and biomolecular engineer turned science host for both shows on the Science Channel, as well as a wardrobe designer and avid cosplayer. So let's talk about what I want to hear about.
And my name is Tony Kim. My company is Hero Within, and we do good or bad? I'm good or bad. Geeky, sophisticated apparel with Marvel and DC. So.
My name is Bill Ostroff, and I love Tony Kim. Not in that way, no. I run Geek Fest. It's the world's largest traveling Comic-Con film festival. We are going into our 6th year. We travel from convention to convention, showing all kinds of geek films, and we hope maybe next year we'll be able to be at New York Comic Con to show you guys some great stuff.
And I'm Katrina Hill. I'm also an author, action movie freak, and a blogger, action flick etc. So first of all, how did you get into your profession?
Well, you know, my story is very tied with Comic-Cons. And so I was attending Comic-Cons, and I looked for over a decade, and was doing various industry stuff. Just like I'll start out blogging, and then I'll, just like Katrina, I'll hosting panels. And I kind of realized that there really wasn't anything beyond like t-shirts and hoodies kind of out there at that time in the geek apparel space. So kind of I searched and found like out of need of, or out of necessity, wanted to launch something that was sophisticated, something that was really more like for grown-up nerds, you know. So Comic-Con is like where we launched San Diego Comic-Con a couple of years ago, and so as Comic-Con has not only as a fan, but has really helped me grow as a business, launch this and grow as a business.
For me, I have been performing on and off for about 20 years. I can't think of a time that I wasn't, and when I got into cosplay, it just blossomed and became this wonderful hobby, and it became something where then I was hired to host and do videos and this and this and that and that. I was also doing burlesque, and I don't know why it actually took me as long as it did to think about marrying the two concepts into nerdlesque. And so now when I do cosplay, I think, how can I make this costume be something that then works for me as a performer? And you guys understand what I'm saying when I say nerdlesque, right?
Yes.
Okay, everybody gets that. Okay, cool.
What?
Nerdlesque is burlesque for nerds. It is basically, yeah, cosplay, nerdlesque. And as I have been performing and doing nerdlesque and going to different states and different festivals and this and getting my groove with it, I then decided, okay, I like performing for other people. I want people to perform for me. And so I started doing my own shows and started producing, and now I have my own production company. And I've been asked to take that on the road, and I have now performed internationally, and I've taught burlesque on the high seas for free. So, but it started with cosplay.
I would say mine started with the power of the microphone. Mine started about 9 years ago. I created a web series called Jedi Camp that was in the Star Wars Fan Film Awards. And I noticed that besides the Fan Film Awards, there really wasn't much in the way of quality video programming, even at San Diego Comic-Con. So I sort of watched, and I noticed that, like, if you're a filmmaker, you notice that San Diego Comic-Con gets bigger and bigger and bigger and pushes out certain things away from the con, including their International Film Festival. So I came up with the idea to create a turnkey solution for Comic-Cons around the country that don't have something like that, and basically bring filmmakers to these cons throughout the year. We start every year in February, we end in November. We do, in our first 5 years, we've had over 4 million, basically booth space walk-bys, and we've had 20 or 30,000 people watch the films, and I do it for the love of being able to bring quality content to conventions, and it all happened because I didn't feel like conventions were really paying any attention to geek films.
So I spent a little under a decade actually working as a firm engineer and kind of chipping away at the glass ceiling, and I realized that while I was setting up women in leadership organizations and different companies, that there weren't actually a lot of women coming in the doors to be engineers. And so in 2015, I decided to take a step away and start to try to just focus on outreach to get more young girls interested in science and STEM. And so that weirdly led me to being on Mythbusters of Search, which I became the only female finalist and soon the winner. And from there, kind of opened this door to science hosting, and actually is how I got introduced to cons. I have been a Trekkie since I was born and had no idea that there was entire conventions dedicated to people like me. And one of my fans from the show actually took me to WonderCon and introduced me to this amazing world. And so I, of course, was like, oh, I'm going to go to WonderCon, I have to dress up. And I did my very first cosplay, which was Starfire, and I was painted head to toe, and I was very dedicated. From there, I realized that cosplay design was very similar to product design, which I had done for a long time, and so I started making very interesting cosplays for myself and for kids that I knew, and that led to wardrobe designing as a side job when I'm not doing science hosting. So I'm hoping eventually my outreach is superhero science, so I want to eventually start marrying all of my cosplays with doing little science videos with each of the characters actually telling who they are and then teaching the science behind it so kids will get excited about science and go on to science.
I actually started out selling insurance for washing machines. When I was living in London, and I got the opportunity to move to New York and thought, hey, now's a good time to stop selling insurance for washing machines. And I wanted to do a career change, and I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting, and ended up kind of applying for some unpaid internships, and one really caught my eye. They wanted someone to kind of start populating a UFO sightings map in partnership with a museum down in Roswell, New Mexico. Wasn't particularly interested in UFOs, but thought it was kind of an interesting field, and did that for a year, and suggested to my boss, who was founding and funding the site, that maybe you're not going to make that big of a splash with UFOs, and suggested to him to maybe get into something a bit more wide-reaching, and we started writing about science and science fiction. And I started doing panels at Comic-Con. I reached out to people like Travis Langley over there to try and start a panel called The Science of Star Wars, and just kept on rolling from there, and ended up managing to do some work for MGM about Stargate, and now I run Stargate Command.
So, in my sense, about a decade ago, I went to my first kind of big con, WonderCon, which was out in San Francisco at the time. For 1 year, there was out in San Francisco, and I made the entire time. And I had a blog that I had just started called rocketmama.com, and I had a lot of very poorly written articles that I was posting about my experience at the con and just general nerd interest and things like that. And I just sort of continued going to cons, writing articles for rocketmama.com, meeting people, making friends, making connections, and then I would find out, hey, this website is looking for someone to write for them. Eventually, this website's looking for someone to write for them, and they're going to actually pay you to write for them. So I just kept doing that, and that led to me hearing about opportunities to meet up with editors and publishers and those sort of folks, and I got to pitch books to them and write books. And now I'm sitting here wearing a suitcase, doing that. So.
You guys seem to have a few things in common, like all of you, even though you do different things. And one is that it's kind of taken you a while to get where you are today. So just one takeaway for you guys, keep on going. A lot of people have been in it for a decade or more before, they get up to that high level of getting paid. And also that you guys all kind of started off in one thing, maybe even completely unrelated, like selling insurance, and it just snowballed into this something else. And I think part of that might be networking. So how important is networking? What is it? Where do you do it?
I would say it's absolutely invaluable in a business like this. Social media is inextricably linked to your ability to be successful in almost any career path, but especially a career path that requires so much interaction, like being some kind of professional nerd. So networking is very important because, for one, it's just fun. You make a lot of friends, meet cool people. But in addition to that, it also helps you link up with people whose brands are in alignment with yours that can help cross-promote you, and you guys can have websites or podcasts or things like that. And it helps everybody to build their careers and build their brands. So just do like Mr. Rogers told you, make friends. And that will
Absolutely. One thing I want to say as a cosplayer, and for everyone out there who wants to be or is thinking about being a professional cosplayer or a performer, they're really the same thing. A cosplayer is a performer. You're on. As soon as you put on that costume, you're on all the time. Whether you're taking a picture with a child or you're meeting with a fan or someone's taking a picture, as tired as you are, be nice. Because you never know if that person who comes up and says, hey, can I take your picture? And you're like, F off. They may be somebody who is, has a camera and is actually shooting for the Wall Street Journal or whatever, or, I don't know, I don't know why I said the Wall Street Journal. So, but actually.
This panel brought to you by the Wall Street Journal.
I'll tell you actually why I said that. I was at San Diego Comic-Con years ago, and I was standing off to the side. I was in a Beetlejuice cosplay, and somebody shot me from the Wall Street Journal, and I got a huge picture in there. And overnight, my social media following went from a few hundred, because this was years ago, and I was just starting out, to several thousand. And that is when people started to then message me and be like, hey, we'd like for you to represent our brand. Because then again, I was taking a break, and this person was very nondescript. They didn't even really have a press pass. And I said, sure. And I ended up with a giant photo. And because I was nice to them, they didn't share the credit. So be nice, because you never know who is going to give you a break, if that makes sense.
I think for me, the networking was really all about being able to learn from other people. Because, like I said, I've been selling washing machines. I had no idea kind of how to make it in the nerd business. All I had was a sort of enthusiasm and an encyclopedic knowledge about Stargate. So, when I was reaching out to people about doing science and science fiction panels, I managed to reach out to Travis and learn a ton from him. He's like, he's every con you go to, he's running around like a marathon runner, going to different panels and hosting them. He's on them, and I learned so much from him and other people who had in the panels, and everything from being on panels to just going to a bar after the con's wrapped and just chatting to people and just kind of figuring out what their own personal experience is, because there's so much to do at these conventions, and everyone has a slightly different take on things. So it's good to kind of get a good idea of what the wider audience is after, because your idea of what a good time is might not necessarily be 99% of other people's.
Yeah, we a year ago we were here for the first time, and we had someone come to the booth and we were chatting it up, talking about all kinds of neat stuff, and he really loved our apparel and said that he does some work with Marvel, and he loved that he didn't work for Marvel, but he did some work for them. And he would love to introduce us and get our name to them. And so, but honestly, it was great. We had a lovely talk. But honestly, at every con, we get a bunch of people, artists and writers and whoever just come by and say, "Oh, I want to make you." And 90% of the time, it doesn't go anywhere, right? But then we got home from the con, and like that Monday, Marvel contacted us and said they wanted to work with us. And so, it's always better when they reach out to you versus vice versa. And so that launched our company in a completely next level, and so you just never know when you just have a conversation. It's pleasant, and it's a great conversation where it might lead to
So yeah, networking I think is huge.
And I think not being afraid to ask, like my dad used to always say, like, just ask, the worst they're gonna say is no. And so, I find that a lot of people don't ask. I actually tend to come to cons and cosplays that you do not know who I am because people are more open to talking to me about their wants and needs in science and their excitement about it if they don't know that I'm me. And it's something that I tend to not even disclose who I am when people take pictures because I want to be able to have those conversations. And I think as fans, and I'm just as guilty of it, it took me being on 3 different versions of Mythbusters to finally be brave enough to reach out to Carrie Byron. So I understand it, but I mean, I just shot out a couple DMs on different platforms to her, and she actually answered. So I always answer my DMs when fans write. It may take me a little while to dig out, but people do look at them. So don't ever feel like someone that you look at and you really have respect for what they're doing in cosplaying or science or any other field is untouchable because most likely they just want to help people too. So reach out, ask them the questions, approach them. Most of the time, I'm sitting lonely, not talking to anyone at cons because no one's talking to me. So feel free to come and talk to me.
I would have to agree with everything everyone said here. I happen to think that as far as social networking, Twitter is probably one of the best vehicles for me and for my film festival. It allows actors to reach out to me, filmmakers to reach out to me, sponsors to reach out to me. And it's how I've gotten many of the sponsors for the film festival. It's how many filmmakers, easily ask questions. I feel as anyone in the creative field, Twitter tends to be a little bit different of an animal than Facebook. I feel like Facebook is like dogs and poos and all the high school people you didn't really want to get back in touch with. Whereas Twitter is essential for marketing. It really is. And I think that if you're in the creative industry, having a Twitter account, using it, making it work. I've been hired by other companies to help them build their Twitter accounts. And what I'm finding is that of social media is definitely the most important, and it's the fastest. Because a lot of people don't get on Facebook every day. Twitter feels like it's an everyday thing for almost everybody.
Now, to that, I will say, for you, it works. For myself as a performer, cosplayer, and producer, Instagram works for me. But then again, what I do is visual. And when I am looking when I'm casting a net to cast for my shows, and I'm looking for performers for out of state, and I'm always looking to cast for my shows. I like to bring in out of state people. I like to, to liven up my shows with new and exciting artists. And I'm looking all the time at other places where I can take my shows, or I'm following up when people say, hey, I would like your show to come to my venue. I go and I'm looking visually. So for me, that would be Instagram. I have found for what I do, Twitter has no reach because we really want to see what they're getting.
I mean, we could do that on Twitter.
In 140 characters. Anyway, but valid point. But I'm just saying, if you are, what you're selling is visual, maybe Instagram. But I agree with you on Facebook.
And so I guess also broadly you could extrapolate from that is to try to cast a wide net, follow the kind of group, what different sites are more suited to what tasks. If you like breathlessly rambling about supernatural episodes, Tumblr is a really good place for that. You've got to find the different sites as they come along and grow and expand or collapse more fiery hell phase like MySpace stuff.
I just want to add, networking is a two-way street as well. Be nice, be friendly, reach out to people, but also if you can help other people in any way, do that as well. Don't just say, give me, because that gets old, speaking from experience. But, okay, so where do you guys make your money, your living? With different professions, I mean, do you do it at conventions, online, you work for a company? Or...
In my case, conventions, I make money selling books at conventions and signing them. Signatures are free. The books will cost money because money is free. But I make money doing that. I make money getting paid to write the books. I get paid to write for blogging sites and things like that. So the words I'm producing will sometimes give me money for the fun of.
I make money with my productions. Dirty Nerdy Burlesque does several giant extravaganza variety show productions a year, and then some smaller shows. Again, we travel when asked if it's the right fit, and I make money on ticket sales, merch, et cetera, and so far it's been very successful. Every show I've done has been a sellout success. In fact, I've oversold and had to turn away people before. So I think I'm doing something right. As I said, to the point where I can look at bringing in special talent, burlesque and cosplay superstars from out of state. I also make money as a performer that gets asked all the time to come perform elsewhere to where I can set my price. Do you want me to come to your show? Maybe. And which is something that I could not do as much as a cosplayer, but I can leverage as a cosplay performer. Something to keep in mind for prospective cosplayers. I also make money as a host and MC, and I make money with brand stuff if the brand is something I believe in. That's something I'm very picky about. I get asked probably 5 times a week in my DMs or whatnot, hey, sell my brand. And it's usually for some kind of tea that makes you poop, that makes you skinny. I will not sell it.
Too right. Mine's boringly straightforward. I make money because I work for MGM. I will preface that getting to MGM was a bit of a hard. Like I said, it went from unpaid internship to kind of doing freelance articles to then becoming in-house editor of a platform, which kind of served as an agency for other brands, and then left that to become a consultant for MGM, and I've now been in-house as their editorial director for about 1.5 years now. So lots of different ways to kind of get there, but yeah, mine's pretty straightforward. It's just my 9-to-5 job.
And so mine is kind of everything that we get ranges from engineering consulting with my old clients for my design days to wardrobe designing for indie films and web series, or actually science hosting for the Science Channel. Freelance world is hit or miss, so being able to be diversified is pretty important, as well as being able to manage money. So being smart about that is what's going to need the ability to kind of wait it out, because it can take a while to get the science hosting to be something that wasn't something I did for a friend shows, but something I got paid for. So keep pushing it and trying for it.
Yeah, we sell mainly online and here at cons. We sell wholesale on Think Geek and Box Lunch stores. We have a polling on this secret, okay? So don't tell anybody, but we're going on the Disney Online store, so we'll be on Disney recently. So, but don't tell anybody, okay? So yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay, from boy. I actually used to be a paper. I work in the film and TV industry in Los Angeles as an AP producer. I just produced a low-budget independent film in Philadelphia. That's sort of my day job. The film festivals are my night and weekend job. I don't sleep a lot. One of the things that I'm hoping for Geek Fest is not only the possibility for filmmakers to screen at the events, but also to get distribution for them. So Geek Fest becoming a distribution company and being able for you guys to see these films online and elsewhere will be another potential revenue stream where I can maybe pull myself out of the actual film industry and work in the film festival industry, which is not very large.
So I think one thing that you guys can all take away from not only our experiences, but I just will say, having worked on this book and interviewed a lot of other professionals or working nerds, is that we tend to get income from lots and lots of different sources. It doesn't tend to be one thing where like MGM is paying us, tends to be money here. So it has a very wide net in terms of like where your income will arrive from.
there any particular obstacles you guys really had to overcome?
I'm straight white male in a nerdy industry, so not much crap has gotten thrown at me. So, no, in my case, no.
Ditto.
Yeah.
I follow that up with that's one of the barriers that I face is not being straight like male in the industry. I mean, just being a woman in science, it's a terrible hurdle that you face every day. Anyone that saw it in the figures, that may have seemed like a historical film, but it is alive and well if you learn the world of science, and it's why all of us have to fight to try to get as much inclusion and diversity as we can in STEM and media so that people have heroes and reasons to try to be in those fields.
Before all this, I was in marketing, and so I left like a great job to be an entrepreneur. And even though I was passionate about clothing, I realized I'm also passionate about things like food and peas is good, that kind of stuff. So, in kind of similar vein, in the entrepreneur world, it's the small companies that get funded is typically 90% of it is it's white males, and the investors are typically white males as well, old white males. And so, being a minority-owned and operated company and raising funds and capital and all that has been a challenge. We've been able to overcome, thankfully. But similarly, as you're trying to not only build a company, you're also trying to break and push culture as well. And so, but we're grateful that we've been able to rise small.
For me, being a performer, it is the same as any other kind of artistic venture. You are going to have to work 50 bazillion jobs. Any kind of artistic, creative life, it's very hard to support yourself doing just that. And I have to say, being a producer is wonderful, and running the shows are wonderful. Getting paid regularly is wonderful. It's nice to be doing that. I do love performing, but I also really like getting paid.
Money's awesome.
Money's awesome.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing. I think my biggest obstacle is calling convention chair people and saying, hey, you guys pay me to come to you. In the first year that I tried to sort of pitch Geek Fest, everybody said, well, why should we pay you to do what we could do? And I'm like, well, go ahead and try. And in the first year, we produced in 4 cons. In the last 5 years, we've been in 10 to 12 cons per year. And we're hoping that both Repop and Fan Expo may be branding us next year as well. So there's a lot of no's, and I think there's going to be a lot of no's no matter what you do or where you go or who you talk to, but there will be 1 or 2 yeses, and then you hope that that relationship will turn into more. And it really is about the brand itself. If people hear about the brand, they're like, oh my God, what is this? And they just want to learn more about it, and then suddenly, I will get 2 or 3 conventions a week that will contact me now. And I have to turn them down because they're not big enough for me. Bill brings up a great point that you have to, I think, in some ways, just love the word no in a sense, because you just have to you're going to hear a lot. And so, but the more times you ask, the more opportunities you'll get a yes out of all of that. And so I talk to a lot of people who say, I've been trying to get connected with whatever company, and they're like, I emailed them a couple of times and they never respond. And I said, email a couple of times, within this hour, right? Because you have to keep doing that over and over. You have to be persistent and just not be afraid to be discouraged by the word no, because, you 100 times, that one time, they're going to come back and say yes and change your life.
I think also, speaking of your point, knowing your value, I see this especially in wardrobe design and the work that I do there. For a long time I was learning, and I was working under a phenomenal designer, and I would volunteer to just follow her around, and at that point I was a degreed engineer that was working for nothing just to learn everything I could about design. And for a long time from there, I took low-income roles and projects just to be able to continue to further and have that chance. But then you have to realize when you get to that point that you've plateaued at that budget level and start asking for more money. And some people are going to say no, but someone's going to say yes. And then you're going to start to learn what your value is and always be trying to kind pitch, you know, so one thing I taught us in negotiation and engineering is he who says the number first loses automatically. So ask them what their budget looks like for whatever role you're trying to be a part of, and whether it's a job in the actual industry or it's a job on the side. See what they have, you know, the box may be deeper than you realize.
So, and what are some other tips? You guys kind of touched on it, but other tips for newcomers who want to get into your line of work?
I will say that a very wise man named Jake the dog once said, "It's sucking at something. It's the first step towards being kind of good at something." So know that if you want to make a nerdy living, you need to be relentless in your pursuit of it and relentless in your pursuit of improvement. Because, like, while I have books now, I have many more books locked away on the hard drive of my computer, never to again curse human eyes to have to look at them because they're terrible. But I had to write those to be able to learn some level of competency to get to where I am today. So be relentless in your drive to do what you love, and be relentless in your drive to improve what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd say don't be afraid to kind of to stretch yourself. Get outside of your comfort zone. You know, I'd never been on a panel before until I was on a panel, and then I found out I love doing these things, and they're actually a great way to meet people. So just, you know, you might not have done something before, you might not think that you have any relevant experience, but if you are passionate and you know a ton about something, then you can probably be on a panel. So speak to people on panels, speak to people at conventions. That's how you might find out that you have something of worth, and you know, you can maybe build on that.
You know, I think push yourself to solve a specific problem out there, and not to be too general. You know, Phil's doing film festivals at cons and women in science and Batman in psychology and so on. But you're being very specific, because if you're not actually out there to actually solve a problem, then how will anyone ever find you on the internet? Like, what are you doing out there, right? So if you are the person that's actually providing something very specific to solve an actual problem out there, then people will talk about you, they'll look for you, they'll find you, and say, hey, my friend, you know, he's the one that does it so-and-so. And so if you can just sort of like be specific about what you're trying to do, I think it will help your followers find you.
I also think don't be afraid to fail. I have a closet full of failures, and when you do succeed, stay humble, because those same people that sort of said no before are going to come back to you, and they're going to start asking, and you don't want to be vindictive about it, and you don't want to hold grudges, and I know it's hard in this day and age. I'm not going to get political, but but yeah, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, I have a comic book I created 6 years ago that's still sitting in my closet. I've written 15 screenplays that will never see the light of day. I've done a whole lot of things, and if I was afraid after the first time I failed, I'd still probably be a paperboy. And people don't read the paper anymore. Just saying.
I'm trying not to be the smartest person in a room. My actual goal is to never be the smartest person in a room or in any group, because then I wouldn't be learning. So especially as you're starting out, you want to find people that are better than you. It's okay to be not the next one, because if you are, then you're going to be stagnant. So just keep pushing yourself, and remember that where your story started doesn't define where it ends. You do. So just keep working hard, and when you stop, you can never give up.
And I would say the thing that you're interested in, what you want to do, if you want to get involved in something, but you're not really involved in it, be there, show up. I get people asking me all the time, you know, they say they want to be a performer, they'd like to get booked in one of my shows. And I say, well, have you actually been out to one of my shows? No. Well, how are you supporting the artistic community? You know, how are you want to support the community that you want to be in? And like you all are being here now, you're showing up, you're being a part of it. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, because we're all nerds, we're all Comic-Con too. This may be something to fill up. But you wouldn't believe how many times, how many asks I get from people who think all they need to do is look at me, I'm great, put me in the show. Support the arts you want to be a part of. Be there. Don't just, you know, and then if you get booked for something, whether it's a panel or this or that, don't just support it when you're booked for it, support it always. like actually support the community. Does that make sense? Because, as a producer, and, you know, and I know other producers, we keep an eye on this. We notice the people who are in the audience, the performers who come out to the shows, that they're not booked in. Say, good job. Thank you for taking care of the artists that are on the stage. So anyway, that's why. I don't also losing my voice right now, so I sound there's a lot of talk sometimes.
And I would also like to add to follow through. If you get a job or whatever, writing, whatever, be there. If it's something you have to show up in person, or if it's for, say, writing a blog post for a website, that's mostly what I do for my website. Turn it in on time, and, you know, just be nice as well, because people will remember if you're rude or a jerk, and then they won't want to work with you anymore.
And that really goes, I mean, let's say you start out and there is you are asking people questions, but let's say you make it, and then people will start asking questions about you, kind of pay it forward, because you don't know what kind of trajectory people are on. You know, someone who's starting out as like a freelance writer, and if you're an editor, you know, do 2 years time, they could score a big editor's job, and they could become someone who's very useful to you. And that's how you build up a really valuable network, is just be nice to as many people as possible and just try and be helpful.
A story I heard once that it's exactly what you're saying. When I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt did Angels in the Outfield with Tony Danza, I think of the right combination of actors. Okay, so when he did that in the 90s, Tony Danza was the name and Joseph Gordon-Levitt was just a kid. Cut to, 15 or so years later, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a super duper famous dude, and he remembers, hey, Tony Danza was really nice to me when I did Angels in the Outfield. I think he'd be really good for this part in the movie that I'm making. And so Tony Danza, by being nice to this kid, he ended up getting work 15 years down the road. So in addition to just the general niceness of being kind to your fellow humans, you can also end up creating work for yourself by being nice to other folks without necessarily knowing who they are.
We are going to open to audience questions. There's a microphone over here in just a minute if you guys want to line up. So I don't forget, tell people where they can find you, or maybe look you up, or your Twitter handle.
You can find, I am at Rocket Mama all over the internet. So particularly Twitter is my most active place. So at Rocket Mama.
I am Go-Go Incognito everywhere. It's easy to remember because it rhymes. Go-Go Incognito.
You're not incognito, you're right here.
No, I'm not.
I'm Dixon_Kieran on Twitter, or if you search Twitter for Stargate, you'll probably see my name pop up.
I'm at TLynR, so TLYNNR 85 everywhere. First name, middle name, last name.
And you can find Here Within at herewithinstore.com, Herewithin Inc. INC on social. We're on the floor at 1627, or 1627, yeah. Oh, sorry, 1671. There you go. I've been saying it so many times throughout the weekend, I can't remember. Right next to the near the Marvel booth. And so yeah, check us out. We have a brand new Marvel collection that we have here at the show. So yeah.
I also noticed your Superman jacket at the DC.
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, it's there as well.
See, talk about branding. You can find GeekFest physically at the Los Angeles Comic Con at the end of October, and then at the Rhode Island Comic Con beginning of November. That ends year 5. We're calling for interest for year 6. If you're a filmmaker,